this random dude is able to take like 16 shotgun blasts to the face and still live. Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I'm Cyranex, clocking in with my good friends, 9 of 12.
Well, hello.
And that one weirdo.
Oh, I have a new special ability of invisibility, and it only works when you can't see me.
That's how it worked in Mystery Men. It's like he was invisible.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it too. I have that on DVD.
Yeah.
Although I'm
think
now
really cool,
imagining
too.
Theo like with his head under the couch, thinking we can't see him.
I mean, we
Like
can't
a
see him
cat.
right now, but that's because of Utah internet. So he could be invisible right now. We don't know. But anyway, although I gotta
Only
say,
on the inside.
yeah, I gotta say, one of my favorite depictions or like examples of like what would be considered invisibility. Have either of you watched or heard of the show Alphas?
Yes! Oh my god!
Yes. You remember the one episode where the woman wasn't technically invisible, but she was able to hide in people's blind spots?
Yes.
Yes. That is one of my favorite depictions of quote unquote invisibility. I love that show, and it is criminal.
It only had 2 seasons.
Oh.
It was smart as can be for what it was dealing with. It was well crafted, and like even the powers, and I use
Yeah.
the term loosely because a lot of it was structured around physics, science,
Yeah.
and then kind of like just how basic things work. It almost reminded me, and this is one of those where it's like, okay, they took it to a fantasy level, but it made sense. In Buffy, there was people who were invisible, and it wasn't they were invisible in the truest sense. It's because nobody paid attention to them.
Yeah.
And because of that, they were willed into not being seen because they
Yeah.
were on the Hellmouth. But in the case of Alphas, like so much of that was just like even the first episode is just so smart.
Oh yeah. It's like, and they did so many things right in that show, and it is criminal that it ended the way it did. But it's like the second episode, having the guy who his power was he could perceive cause and effect much further than any other normal person could.
Yep.
But it's like everyone had like the thing about these powers is they all had these really big benefits, but they also had some kind of downside. And his downside was like he just couldn't understand why no one else could see it. And he just like infuriated him. It's like, how could he not see the like if you do this, that ends up doing this? And it's like because that's like 48 steps down the road.
Yep. And everyone was precise as correct. And that what was so
Yeah.
smart about the way they, the creators did the ideal of powers. Because it wasn't
Yeah.
like, it wasn't like the ideal of like, oh, well, everything is just so fantastical. It spoke
Yeah.
to the title, Alphas. Like, this is the first step of an evolution of people who, like, you know, a few thousand years will be able to defy gravity and fly, and we'll be able
Well-
to do this. But these are literally the first steps of what those types will look like.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I love the fact that they didn't even go to that extent. Like, nobody could just, like, defy gravity or anything like that. And they had a somewhat scientific explanation behind everything. It's like the one guy who was able to get super speed or super strength. Well, it was because he was able to activate on command his fight or flight response and basically give himself a giant adrenaline boost to the point where, and like even then, he wasn't like knocking buildings over or anything like that. He was like pushing an SUV sideways, that kind of level of strength. As like the guy that
So good.
had had more than human hand-eye coordination. It's like when he's on, he was able to throw a quarter into a vending machine from across the room. But when he was off, he couldn't hit anything.
Yep.
And it's like,
Barely tie his shoelaces.
it's such a good show.
It was
so-
very pricey for the time for sci-fi.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is like that was right around the time. I mean, they had already done other shows that had kind of limped them out of the whole creature movie of the week, like they had
Yeah.
Haven and other shows, and they were starting to really get like, okay, like we're not going to make sci-fi, we're not going to make fun of sci-fi the way we used to, because they had like Eureka and stuff like that. But then
Yeah.
you have this show that
love
was
Eureka.
just so well structured.
And
I love Eureka.
yeah, Eureka, Warehouse
Eureka
13.
was amazing.
I have heard Warehouse 13 was great. I've heard some people say they did not like Haven. I thought it was a fantastic show. It got a little crazy, a little weird at the end of the series, but overall, I thought it was great. But
the first 3 seasons are fantastic.
yeah,
And my ex-wife used to, I mean, we all have shows that we'll wait up for, even though now we don't, I mean, even like 10 years ago, we don't really have to do appointment TV anymore, but she used to like watch it religiously.
yeah,
And I didn't get into it at first. After a while, I was like, ho hum, ho hum. And then I watched it. And then I turned into, she was like, I want to watch this. I'd be like, I'm watching my stories. You know, I turned into that person. But
nice.
I felt like towards the end, because it got a little goofy, it was, I think it was, and I think a lot of shows suffer from this sooner or later. When they know the end is near, I feel like they all get in a writer's room. They don't think about the end up until they get to the end. So they look at each other and they go, so are we going with, it was all just a dream? Like, how do we tie all this up?
Yeah.
So some shows really feel like they just kind of hobble to the end. Dexter
Yeah.
was one of them. Haven.
Oh, don't
they
tell
did
me
their
that.
best.
I'm binging Dexter right now. I'm on season 6.
Oh,
I've been staying up till like 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't stop watching.
It's not. It's no spoilers. It's not a bad ending, but it is. It's one that everybody is going to agree on, and you can't win that battle. Like even the Shield. Like I used to be obsessed with the Shield, and it ended in a way that I thought was fitting. But then certain characters don't get their comeuppance, and you're kind of like, well, that's crappy. But then you go, you know what? That fits that character, them dodging their comeuppance for like 7 seasons.
You
So
know
it
what
is kind
did
of
great? We just finished Preacher. Preacher did great.
Oh,
Preacher did great, tying that ending all up for you. I thought the ending of that one was fantastic.
Yeah. All right, so eventually we should probably just turn this section into its own podcast because we seem to like end up going to like nostalgia television quite frequently for our banter. But
part-time TV watchers.
yeah, that's not inaccurate actually.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Line it up.
But we do have a game to talk about, so let's go ahead and get back to work.
Morning break is over. Morning break is over.
Oh, and boy, what a game we got today. I've been wanting to play this game. I've been wanting to talk about this game for a while now. I originally saw, I believe it was Jacksepticeye, play through this game a couple of years ago and thought it was fantastic when I watched him. And doing a little bit more research into it, it's even more so. We're going to be talking about Detroit Become Human. The next game we're talking about is, choices matter. And boy, do they matter in this game. So developed and published by Quantic Dream. Is currently $39.99 on Windows via Epic and Steam. And $19.99 on PlayStation because it is a PlayStation 4 game. It has not been remade or anything like that, so that's probably why it's a little bit cheaper. Currently, though, it's actually on sale until January 30th for $9.99. So if you have a PlayStation, even PlayStation 4, I don't know how the backwards compatibility works on PlayStation 5, but it might be good to pick it up on there if you already have the system. I got this on sale like 3 months ago during one of the Steam sales, and I got it for pretty cheap, so I got it there. This I find the whole kind of confluence of this game and the day like today that we're talking about it, I think is very kind of fortuitous and coincidental, because like overall the main theme of this game is civil rights. granted, it does it in a way of androids and humans rather than race or anything like that. But I did not plan it this way, but we were talking about this the day before MLK Day. So kind of, I don't know if I could have planned it even better than that, but talking about a game that involves civil rights the day before Martin Luther King Jr. Day. But, and also well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that later, but this game takes place in the near future, 2038. And where androids AI are commonplace. They are, machine assistants and stuff like that. Everyone, whoever has, a couple $1,000 can go get some kind of android to help them around the house or do whatever other activity they need.
I want to say, really surprised at the pricing.
Yeah, the fact that like an android was only like $8,000.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
that's
with financing, like 48
Yeah.
months, no 0% financing. I'm like, shit, that's reachable. And I
Yeah.
also want to say I was really impressed with, I'm sorry I couldn't play. I don't usually, I'm too casual a gamer to be like, oh, why do you have a Mac? You can't play anything. It's like, I can play plenty.
yeah,
This, I can't play.
yeah.
And
Unfortunately,
I actually was feeling the pain, and I usually don't care. There's plenty, and I really, really loved so
Yeah.
much about it. And one was that look, that near future. It was so solidly, like, from the very beginning intro tableau of like, we are really close to most of it, and enough of it looks like familiar to like now. Like, I feel like they portrayed near future really well.
Yeah, and what I like is the fact that like I live in the Metro Detroit area, so I've seen these locations. I was able to look like, oh, there's a GM building. I was like, I've been there. That's Hart Plaza. And, all this. I've been able to. I know these locations, and the fact that they like when they depict downtown, that is the nice part of Detroit. And you can see that in this game as well. You can actually like walk around and not feel like you're going to get murdered immediately. But there are sections of this that take place in residential Detroit, and it's still a shithole. Because that's accurate. It's like you're going down the street and this one guy is taking his android back to his house in residential Detroit, and they're passing by burned out buildings and like empty lots and stuff like that. And it's like, that's accurate. That's why I make that distinction. But I love that they have that. I also, it is not lost on me that in one of the early chapters, this is a game about civil rights, with under the guise of androids and versus humans type of situation.
It's like a lot of what they did in TNG with Data.
Yes, there's that, kind of, it's like that it does incorporate that aspect of like what makes us human, or like what makes us alive, I should say. But it also, ultimately
Sentience,
ultimately is that it has that civil rights type thing, message to it as well. And it's not lost on me the fact that this takes place in Detroit. And in one of the earlier chapters, you see that there is a compartment in the back of the bus strictly for androids. And, kind of on the nose with Rosa Parks. So that was not lost on me.
And the prejudices that people express
Oh, yeah.
are, it's a little on the nose there.
Yeah, and I do think it's kind of funny, whenever, early on especially, they show people, like homeless people on the side of the road and everything, and they have a sign that says, like, androids took my job, please help, and stuff like that. And I'm the kind of person that is like, androids, please, take my job. I don't want to work. I want to, like, if I could stay at home and do this full time and get paid for it, please. It's like, go out, do all the manufacturing stuff. That's my take on AI. We should not have AI doing art. We need AI doing all the remedial stuff so that we can go home and do art. So that, like, I don't know. It's a whole nother topic of discussion. But, the way they depict the city, I think, is really well done. Just the graphics alone, like, there are certain elements of some of the assets that are a little wonky. Like water liquids in general, or in basically any game, are going to look a little bit weird. So there is a little bit of that, but the actual like human and android models are fantastic. Doing the mocap with the different actors and everything, really well done. Oh, just the subtle facial expressions you get to see and everything is just fantastic. The game looks amazing, and like one aspect of it that really impressed me is when you get into QuickTime sequences, like when you're like getting into fight scenes and stuff like that, where you're just quickly hitting the buttons to make sure you're doing the right things. The detail, or like how they're able to piece all of those different, because like if you fail or succeed, it's going to give you a different scene. It's going to give you a different thing. And how they're able to just piece those all together seamlessly throughout the different sequence is fantastic. It's so impressive that they're able to do that. So I was really impressed with that, 'cause that took place a couple times throughout the game. Unlike the last two games we talked about, where there's kind of an overarching story and you kind of pick choices, but ultimately you still ended up in the same location type of situation. This one can be vastly different depending on the choices you make and the situations you succeed or fail in. It is impressive. Like there's entire scenes, there's like entire chapters, I think, that can be completely bypassed if you make a certain choice or don't make a certain choice, or you fail a quick time event, or stuff like that. There's entire sections that can just be completely eliminated. And excuse me. And I just think that's incredibly impressive. Like for example, I'll give an example in just a little bit, but I wanted to explain a little bit more. So the story starts off, you're playing as 3 different characters. All 3 of them are androids in different situations. So you have Marcus, who is a kind of a personal assistant, or personal assistant type android, who's helping this elderly painter, a famous painter in Detroit. He's kind of like the personal butler for this painter named Carl Manfred. And so you're playing as him. You have Kara, who is another kind of maid android, who is was originally bought by this complete jackhole named Todd. I think if you have the name Todd, you have some work to do to get my trust. But like you start off, Kara's back in the shop. She was just repaired because Todd supposedly she got hit by a car. But you can tell just looking at this guy. No, he beat the crap out of her. Just completely destroyed her. And gets her back and everything. She had her memory wiped and doesn't remember any what happened before this. But Todd has a daughter named Alice and he's apparently a drug addict as well. Unemployed drug addict who lives in the crappy part of residential Detroit. And has this android to just take care of everything around the house and all that jazz. And then the third character is a prototype android named Connor, who is actually the company that makes these androids is called CyberLife. And he is a prototype android created by CyberLife to help the Detroit Police Department hunt down and eliminate androids that are they refer to as deviants. So in this game, normally androids obey their masters implicitly, or explicitly, or whatever the correct term is.
That too.
Yeah. But some of these, after some kind of stress, some kind of event, are able to deviate and basically break from their programming and gain free will. And Connor is charged with finding these deviants and eliminating them in order to maintain national security, to maintain the interests of cyberlife and such, so that there's not mass panic because of these deviants gaining free will and potentially uprising against humans, such is the case with literally every other story that involves machines versus humans. But that's a possibility. It's not for sure, but it's a possibility in the story that happens. So you're primarily controlling these three characters through their various stories, and Marcus and Connor, their stories are much more integral to the overarching story, the events that are going on throughout the game. Kara is her story is much more personal, and but not as integral to the rest of the world. Like her story is more so the ramifications and influences of the other two characters. But like their situations are just wildly different and just very interesting. So like we will be talking about some spoilers, but it actually is kind of difficult to spoil this game because there's so many different options. Like I actually was able to get through a complete playthrough before we did the show today. And so I have my own version of the story, but there's wildly different endings that you can get to depending on what choices you make. And it's astounding. But so like with Marcus, he gets in a conflict with Carl's son, and which in my game, the decisions I made, Marcus and Kara will become deviants regardless. That's just part of their story. So Marcus, when he deviates, he's in this conflict with Carl's son, who is a drug dealer. He's just constantly asking for money for illicit whatever, and gets in conflict with him. He deviates. He breaks free from his master, from his programming, and he has the option to either withstand whatever beating he's taking from his son, which isn't really all that extensive, just getting berated from him, or he can fight back. Carl says, "Don't hit him." He's even though Carl is kind of estranged from his son, it's his son still. So he tells Marcus not to attack him or anything like that. But in the process, I had Marcus be peaceful. Like that was the one thing that I had throughout the entire game was Marcus was peaceful, did not fight back. That kind of situation. So he didn't fight back. Carl ends up having a heart attack and dies. And just prior to this, Marcus called the police because Carl's son had broken in didn't break in, but they was inside the house. They didn't know it was him, all that stuff. So they called the police before they went to the studio. And so the police arrive just after Carl dies from a heart attack. Marcus is looking over the body. Liam, Carl's son, is standing over there and immediately goes, "It was the android. He did it." And of course, the police just don't ask any questions. They just shoot Marcus. They just shoot him. They're just like,
sounds about right, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the thing is I mentioned on Blue Sky this past week when I started playing this, the single most unrealistic thing about this entire game is the fact that there's functional public transportation in Detroit. It's there was a situation there's a situation where Kara would have had to have waited about 4 hours for a bus to arrive, and it probably still wouldn't have stopped for her. It probably would have just driven past her, which would have changed the story drastically. But I was just amused by that. It's the fact that they actually have buses running and everything. It's no, that's not how Detroit works. Anyway.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's the part that was fake.
Yeah, that was the part that was unrealistic. Not the cop just shooting the guy that he thinks is a suspect and not asking any questions. That's actually very realistic, unfortunately. But So Marcus is knocked out. He like later on he wakes up in a junkyard, somehow still functional, but albeit very damaged. Like both of his legs are destroyed from the knee down. He's got it's like the androids have biocomponents, which are almost they're like synthetic versions of humanoid components. So they have a heart, they have like a circulatory system, they have blue blood, which it functions very much like normal human blood, except it's for androids. It circulates all the things that they need for that. It's like blue blood pump is damaged. He's got a damaged eye. His hearing is messed up. He has to drag himself through the junkyard to fix himself and all that stuff. And he ends up doing that. And, and like from that point on, he basically becomes Android Jesus. For lack of a better term. It's like he becomes basically the savior of android kind. So like that continues on, kind of get a little bit to the other characters. Kara goes back with Todd and is trying to clean up the house and everything like that. And there's his little girl was like 9-year-old girl Alice there. And at one point, Todd is an abusive a-hole and like gets angry, flips over the kitchen, the dining room table and backhands Alice. Mind you, Alice didn't say anything. He just assumes that she is judging him. And then just backhands Alice. Alice goes upstairs and, of course, Kara, her whole thing is like, Todd even told her, it's like, okay, your job is to take care of Alice, take care of the house, and all that stuff. So her deviating is just like, okay, Todd is abusive. I need to protect Alice, period. And so she breaks free from her programming, goes deviant, goes up, saves Alice. And this is one of the biggest potential divergence in the story. Because if you don't play your cards right, Kara can die there. She can just be destroyed by Todd at the very beginning of her story. And that is very interesting because, again, her story doesn't influence the greater story. It's a much more personal, much more close-up story of like what can happen because of the other two. But yes, I think it's interesting.
Well, it seemed to me that was something that struck me about this game and the choices and the difference it can make. It's not just getting a different ending, like those. Yeah. This many players chose that is always interesting, but you can play it just completely differently. You can play it to just be a violent, shooter basically, and you can play it to be empathetic and reaching towards sentience and building relationships, like just even going through crime scenes that Connor's going through, right? It's either trying to figure out what's going on or just rushing to action. And those choices really, really changed this game.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's something that's interesting is I'm not sure how many different opportunities there are for Marcus to die in the story, because his character really is a much more kind of integral character to the overarching world. Connor can die multiple times. He can. I think if you do it right, he can die 9 times.
If you do it right.
Yeah, if you do it right. It's like,
I'm sure you'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna kill you as many times as I can. What's the path to that?
Yeah.
Just do the killing right, okay?
Yeah. I mean, one of the ways he can die is right in the hostage situation at the beginning of the game. It's kind of like the prologue chapter, and it was actually, I believe it's also the demo level. He's trying to resolve this hostage situation with the deviant, who is taking the child of his owner's family hostage and is on this terrace of this high rise in Detroit. And one of the options you can do is, once you get close enough, Connor can just run up, grab the girl, shove the deviant off the roof, and shield the girl with his own body. And he ends up dying, but the girl is saved. His mission is successful. That's frankly all he cares
I
about.
seem to remember, like, it's the choice is actually framed as you can sacrifice yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the options. So that's like right off the bat he can
That
do that.
situation was a really good tone setter for the game too.
Yeah.
It really, in a short period, set up everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Because like that android Daniel, like I
Yeah,
don't know,
Daniel.
like he was flipping out. He went rogue because they were replacing him, and
Yeah.
the girl was his like bestie, and he
Yeah.
flipped out.
Yeah, that really does set up the situation. It's like, okay, this is some kind of important stressor to these guys. And you find out, like, with some of the other stories of how some of the major characters went deviant is just, yeah, that would cause it. Like what you even said with Kara, you know, her whole reason for being there was to take care of Alice. And Todd's a problem. I need to protect Alice. I need to get her out of here and just protect her. And Kara's story in general, I think, is fantastic because it really shows the amount of humanity that these androids could achieve. Because basically she becomes Alice's mother in every respect, other than giving birth to Alice. And the one, oh, man, there's one part of, so ultimately, like, the path that I took, at least, Alice, Kara, and another deviant that they meet along the way named Luther, they all basically become family. They become this one kind of family unit throughout these events. And they're trying to get to Canada. Because there are no android laws in Canada. They're able to disguise themselves as humans well enough that they can just live in Canada basically as humans and never be found again. Excuse me. So they're just trying to get to Canada. There's ends up being like two ways you can get there. You can either get a bus, you can take the bus over the border, but you need to steal someone else's bus tickets to do it. And I decided not to. You know, I was trying to go full Paragon with my run through, so they returned.
Of course you were.
Yeah, of course. I kind of.
I bet Theo didn't.
Oh yeah,
No, I did not.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back. I want to stream the game and try to make different choices. Try to go a little renegade, not super so, but like just a little bit. But yeah, this other couple dropped their bus tickets, and you could just pick them up and just hide them and not say anything about them. But I decided to return the tickets, and I ended up. The only other way you can go is another group. They're basically android smugglers. They give you a couple boats to go across the Detroit River into Canada. But in that situation, there's Border Patrol boats, Coast Guard, whatever, going around, and they don't ask questions. They just start shooting at you. And I found out, like, the choice I made.
Coast Guard.
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate as well.
That tracks.
It's like there's a couple choices you can take to avoid them. The initial one that I took ended up with Alice getting shot, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that. So I restarted that section, and instead all of us dove onto the other side of the boat to avoid getting shot, and climbed back up when the Coast Guard left, and Luther ends up dying, which still pissed me off because it's like I wanted these guys to be a family in Canada. I wanted them to go on. So it's like, okay, I actually looked up. This was the one time I looked up. It's like, okay, is there any way I could save him? And it's like, unfortunately, if you're going across the river at all, Luther's going to die. It's like the only way that you can actually save all three of them as one family unit is to take the bus tickets and go across the border that way. And even then, it's dependent. Like even then, that's dependent on the stance Marcus is taking. So it's again like the other two characters influencing Kara's story, but it's like it's like, so you have Marcus basically becoming robot Jesus, and Connor is a very interesting character in all of this because the other two characters are kind of set in their ways, set in their goals. Connor is a little bit more variable. The other two characters, no matter what, they're going to become deviants early in their stories. Connor has a choice later on. He can either continue his mission as a machine of Cyberlife to eliminate deviants, or he can become a deviant himself and side with his people, with the androids. And I'm sure that creates a completely different dynamic. I, of course, being the full paragon that I am, he became a deviant, helped Marcus and the rest of them gain independence, which it's like you kind of have to make decisions like early on. It's like, okay, what path is Marcus going to take? Is he going to be peaceful or is he going to be aggressive? That makes a big role in the game because it's like, okay, are you going to demonstrate? Are you going to protest? Are you going to march? Or are you going to go on into all out war? All out war. Yeah, words somewhere.
Jeez, say stuff.
Yeah. So it's like that's the big kind of choice you need to make with Marcus. And your companions are, of course, one is one way, one is the other. But even if you go full pacifist, the aggressive companion ends up becoming your lover anyway. So it doesn't really, in that respect, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you can either go aggressive or passive with Marcus, and that changes the public opinion. And if you're doing, like I did, completely pacifist, I could completely peaceful, and that made it so that public opinion was incredibly supportive towards androids, because it's like they're obviously showing that they can live peacefully with us. We're the aggressors. We should allow them to live their lives peacefully because they're demonstrating they are capable of doing that. Because that's one of the big fears with people have is like, okay, they're thinking for themselves. Are they going to become our enemies? And it's like with Marcus being peaceful, he's like, no, we want to live peacefully with you. You're the ones who are killing us. And by him going peaceful like that, that betters the public opinion, which inevitably will eventually affect Kara. Because like when she gets to the border, they have developed a new test to detect androids. She's detected as an android, but she's like, we just want to live in peace. We don't want anything else. And depending on how supportive public opinion is, the border guard will either let them go or will flag them as androids. So, and then with Connor all in this as well, he is, again, you have to kind of decide whether he's going to be, is he going to become a deviant or is he going to stay a machine and stick to his mission? Because that changes his whole thing as well. Because there's situations like, okay, if he's gaining human-like empathy, he's not going to take this kind of action. But if he's strictly just trying to fulfill his mission, he's going to be ruthless. He's probably one of the most Paragon renegade type character. Well, Marcus is too, but Connor's pretty diametrically opposed in his choices as well. Especially when it comes to he's working with the Detroit Police Department specifically with a detective named Hank. His relationship with Hank is affected by all of this as well. But there's even room for variation with Hank too, because Hank comes out hating androids. So if you're destroying deviants, he's probably not going to care that much. But at the same time, it's like if you start showing empathy, it's like Hank is still a human and is able to empathize with that. And he can be convinced like, okay, maybe androids aren't that bad. So it's just wild how different the story can go. And just the mocap I think is fantastic. The near future, like none of the technology is super out there that's unrealistic, I think. Like like beyond the androids themselves, I think the graffiti like gun or whatever that they use, it's like almost like digital graffiti type situation, like almost a hologram. That's can be a little bit out there, I think. But other than that, it's like the rest of it's not really that far fetched. I think that's great. It's just overall, if you like any sort of choices matter games, I think this has to be on your list. This has to be not only on your list, it has to be high on your list. Like, I consider this to be dang near a masterpiece, especially in this genre.
I think in this genre, especially, I mean, given the ones we've been looking at and everything, like, this is what they're trying to do. Like, they succeeded in a truly, like, choices matter, like our theme month. Like, they really do in this.
Yeah.
And replayability is
It's through the roof,
pretty extensive,
So good.
Yeah, like I said, I've gone through one playthrough already, and but I want to get back into streaming. I say that all the time, but I really do. And I want to stream this game. And try to, like, the thing is, like, even if I do, like, I don't remember every single choice, like, dialogue choice I made. I mean, that's another thing with the, like, even just the dialogue choices. Oftentimes, you're not able to do every single option. So you have to choose, like, I keep saying that one of the things I really like in games is opportunity cost. There's a lot of that in this, even just in dialogue choices, because it's like, okay, I could choose like these two options to get this kind of information or get this kind of reaction, and that's it. If I want to try to do some other result, I have to start the checkpoint over again and choose something different. I love that about games. There's a lot of that in this. The QuickTime sequences are intense. It's like, but you also don't have to be perfect. You can slip up a couple times and still succeed, which is good. I like that fact. And there also is I believe a story mode of the game as well, which I think would reduce the difficulty of those as well. If there's any one complaint that I have about this game, and this is about games in general, really. It's not just this, but I've seen this kind of thing a couple of times in different kinds of games. Just give me a button prompt. I don't need to do Hadoken motions to open a door. I really don't care about these like immersive controls. It's like just press A, open the door. That's all I need. Like, to a certain degree, I can see why they do it in this game, because a lot of times those button prompts, like there are multiple button prompts. Like, okay, if it has this symbol, you have to hold the button. But if it's this symbol, you have to tap the button. And it's like, I know
the point of that. No, I mean,
well,
is it gamifying it? Is it, why would you bother? It doesn't affect the story. Like, that's
that's the thing, is sometimes it does affect the story, because like there's a sequence where you're
not being able to open the door.
Well, that's one example that I can do without, but there is some use cases for that where it's like, this is an intense situation. You need to, it's there to add tension. I can understand that to a degree.
I can understand that.
Like, there's one sequence where you're walking down the street as Kara and there's police everywhere looking for you. So you have to try to avoid the police in order to get to the bus station, or actually it's a tram station, I think, people mover. And there's certain sections where it's like, okay, there's a cop that comes around the corner, he's about to spot you. You have to do this button command in order to quickly put up an umbrella so they don't see you, or hide behind a bus stop so they don't see you, that kind of stuff. So it's meant to add tension in those situations, but in normal situations, just give me press A, open the door. So that's just me. I that's not just for this game either. This is for just quote unquote immersive games in general.
Yeah, if it's pulling you out, it's defeating the immersive thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not too much immersive in the immersiveness.
yeah. So that's something I could just do without. That does not equate to immersive for me. But yeah, and there are some very tense situations in this game.
Oh, yes.
It's like there's a couple fight scenes with Connor where it's like and again, like I was saying earlier about the QuickTime events during the fight scenes and stuff, because it's like you have the prompt and it's like you have a fail success status of that, and that changes what happens immediately in that sequence. And these sequences are going fast. And it's like the fact that they're able to just tie all those together so seamlessly like that, I think is fantastic. It's really impressive that they're able to do that. I thought they did that really well. But yeah, there's a lot of just intense scenes, like fight scenes with Connor. There's a couple of segments with Marcus, like especially when you're trying to escape Jericho, which is a kind of like a sanctuary for androids. It gets raided. At least in my game, it got raided. I don't know if that's something that happens regardless, but it got raided, and you're trying to get out. Marcus is trying to save people, save followers and stuff like that as he goes along, and so it's like you get up to one of these guys, and you have the option to either leave or intervene. And I intervened every time, which goes into QuickTime events. And again, I'm not sure how many opportunities in the story Marcus has to actually be killed. But it's like but it's still just intense. Just like, such. There's so many things that this game does so well, not just in the choices matters aspect, but also just in the raw gameplay and the dialogue choices, the situational choices, and just the situations you get into in general. Very well done. And
what's your favorite bits, Theo?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Do we have 7 more hours to go?
I know, we haven't heard from you much, and you're
This-
saying how much you
Well-
love this game.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I had said, like, we had talked a little bit on Discord, like, I would be giggling intermittently because I'm taking relishment in, like, you guys enjoying it. This was I literally cross on PlayStation, having zero clue what I was in for. And I played it for 20 minutes, and 20 minutes turned into 2 hours, and then 2 hours turned into, oh, that smells me. Oh, I should, oh, yeah. Oh, what's this text? I was supposed to meet her. Uh-oh. It is one of those games that took me by surprise.
Now that's immersive.
Yeah.
Well, no,
So
absolutely. It was one of those things where I'm literally sitting there the whole time, kind of waiting where it's going to go. And the beauty of, this theme and talking about immersiveness in a game is that when it clicks, it clicks. It's almost like chemical when it's like, oh, that's working. And in doing so, like, you're along for the ride. I literally started this game just as a goof to kind of see, like, oh, this looks cool. Okay, look a little bit up on the Google box. And then I started playing it, and the time just goes away. And there is so much to that immersiveness, and a lot of it is because the choices you make can have wild swings in the way that the direction of the game can go.
Yeah.
It's beautifully done. It's well executed. I love a lot of the actors and voice actors. And, there was that me. I think the real hang up was like, oh, so you're doing this kind of future thing. I mean, it makes sense where they're going, but I'm kind of like, you went with Detroit, huh? Like,
Yeah.
you kind of want to go like the civil rights and all that. Then I'm like, no, nobody would buy this kind of tech in like Biloxi, even in 2038.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, like I said at the beginning, it's like, it was not it's a little bit on the nose. If you know Detroit history about, Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement and all that jazz, having the androids in a compartment in the back of the bus, it's kind of on the nose there, and that was not lost on me. But like for the part-time gamer aspect of this, the chapters are pretty short. There's a lot of chapters, And generally speaking, if they change locations, it's a new chapter, or like they'll go to a new character, it's a new chapter and everything like that. So like a chapter in this can take, with the exception of like the last two, a chapter can take like 20 minutes, half an hour, maybe. So, and even within those chapters, they give you checkpoints. Eventually, like once you complete a chapter, you can go back and it'll show you the flow chart, which I think is fantastic. Because it's like, okay, I took this path. It didn't seem like there was anything else I could do, but then you look at the flow chart, just like, wait, I could make a different decision here, and that goes a completely different direction. And it's like, just like there's many different options, and they're just like, wait a minute, I could have done something different here, and it would have done something, ended a completely different section of this flowchart. I thought that was well done. But in regards to like the chapter length and all that, they give you a lot of off ramps to stop playing the game, take a break. You won't want to. There's like every night that I played this, like, okay, it's like 1:30 in the morning. I'm supposed to be waking up at like 5 hours. I still want to keep playing. It is that compelling of a game. So unlike the last two games that we kind of like, they're very story heavy, very similar kind of ends and to the games. You can probably just watch those. This one, you need to play it. If you want to experience it the best way possible, you need to play it. I am going, like I said, my goal is to start streaming. I want to start streaming this game, and try to make different decisions. Emphasis on the word try, because I still like going Paragon regardless. But I might decide to like rob the convenience store's car this time, instead of sleeping in the abandoned car. I don't know yet. But yeah, it deserves all the awards it's gotten. I don't know what ones in specific.
It's gotten a lot of love.
Yeah, it's like 97% on Steam right now. It's rated very highly, and I can see why.
It takes you places if you go along for the ride, and I think that's kind of the beauty of what's supposed to be an immersive game. Like if it clicks with you, you're there, and you're just hanging on.
Yeah. Oh. And the thing, like with the choices matter, but there's also not necessarily any wrong choices. There's just your choices and the situations you get into, because there are certain situations where you don't have full control of what happens. Where you just kind of have to deal with the circumstances, but even those circumstances can be affected by the choices you made earlier on in the game. So it's like, it's a living experience. You just kind of, it's very difficult to save scum this kind of game. You just kind of, and honestly, like it's even more compelling if you don't. There was, I think, 2 sections where I quote unquote save scummed, where I just restarted a checkpoint. But other than that, whatever happened, I just dealt with. And it's incredibly compelling story that way. Yeah. So
Awesome.
Yeah. So good.
Definitely recommend this game. All right, I think we got a little bit of time to do some water cooler talk. This is a more recent topic that I kind of wanted to bring up, and it's somewhat tangentially related to the game we talked about. So let's go ahead and get into our water cooler talk real quick.
You get that thing I sent you?
Yeah. So
there it is.
Yeah. I mean, other than the TikTok and Marvel Snap stuff that's been going on, that happened like literally today, so we're not gonna get into that one. But game that I've been getting into a lot is Marvel Rivals, and there's been a little bit of controversy that I think is way overblown personally. In quick play, they have secretly been putting people on losing streaks into bot matches. So the entire other team are bots, and I think it's like 4 humans and 2 bots on your team, and then the entire other team is bots. And they've been doing this secretly. They have not been telling anyone that they've officially been doing this. So people are a little upset that their numbers might not be entirely accurate. That they're then, yeah. I personally think this is way overblown, and I don't care.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not
no,
competitive enough to
the
care.
Oh, I feel anger.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm good.
yeah,
I mean,
I c-
you and apparently there, even with the guy who wrote the article and looked into this, it's only in quick play.
yeah.
It's not even in the true competitive mode that this is happening. And I don't know. I feel like if I was playing and I was losing a lot, I would want some bots in matches
Yeah.
to get better and
Yeah.
not be having to do that to my team. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, part of it is it's psychological because like the criteria that they were testing is it's only in, like you said, it's only in quick play. So it's not in competitive mode. So in competitive, you're strictly facing humans. It takes a couple consecutive losses to be eligible for a bot match. And even then, it's not guaranteed. I think this guy in the article said it's supposed to be around 2 consecutive losses, but it took him 3 consecutive losses to get into a bot match. But yeah,
I mean, they should have been upfront about it. Yeah. But I don't think it's that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. It's like the thing is like I get tilted super easily in competitive games. It's usually why I avoid them. I've actually been getting into Marvel Rivals, probably honestly a little bit because of this, which is exactly why they're doing it. And it's like to keep people playing the game because it's like, okay, we don't want people to rage quit because they lost twice. Let's give them an easy match so they can get their little bit of confidence back and continue on. So for me, at least, it's worked. And also, I don't care because honestly, I kind of like playing against the bots anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of the missions you can complete in practice versus AI mode, which is actually what I've been doing lately, just because I like playing the game, but I don't necessarily like the competitive aspect. That's one of the reasons why one of the first things I do when I get in a match is I turn off the text chat because none of it I want to see. I don't care. It's like I get insulted by people on my own team when we're winning. It's like, I don't need that. I want to just pretend that everyone I'm playing with is a bot, whether or not it actually is. But I can understand why they're doing it. I can also understand to a certain degree why people are upset with it because they are being lied to, saying, and they're thinking they're just getting better when it's actually, no, we're just giving you an easy match to help you feel better. But at the same time, it works, which is why they did it. And I think one major point is
This guy who wrote this article, by the way, is so salty.
Oh yeah, like he's got a negative take on this. It's like the saying it's like, and it's not good for anyone. It's like, well, it obviously works. It's good for some people at least. But
Yeah, and like, oh, obviously, I was getting kills with Spider-Man, so it had to be bots. That should have been I'm like, oh, geez, dude.
yeah,
You sound like
granted,
one of those people who accuses everyone of being a bot all the time, even when they're not.
Yeah. But then like I even went through my history and looked just like, okay, I had 2 consecutive losses here. And I checked the next match and it was pretty consistently. It's like, you can tell because if you go into your history and you try to look up the stats on a character, or like on a player on the other team, if it comes up with restricted access, that's because it's a bot. It's not an actual person. They don't have an actual account. And pretty consistently, it's like, okay, I got 2 losses here. I check the next match, next quick play match. Okay, yeah, those were bots. Okay, whatever. And then I get a couple more wins, get a couple losses, consecutive losses after that, and so whatever. But I forgot where I was going. But yeah, he get the author of this article, which we should probably actually put in the chat because why not?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Slacking. I was looking up something else weird.
Yeah. But it's like, it obviously works. But another thing that needs to be considered is the overall mentality of the game. Oh, there's very obvious comparisons between this and Overwatch, but I think there's one thing in these games, these two games, that is very, very different. Overwatch, from the get-go, was intended to be an esport. They had Overwatch League from the start. You know, that was their main goal. It's like, we want to make an esport. So everything is catered to the very highest tier of players who are professionals, who are doing this for a living. Marvel Rivals is not that. I don't even think they have esports really on their mind for this game. They just want to make a fun game. So yeah, things can be unbalanced, but you know what? Everyone in some situation is unbalanced, which if everyone's unbalanced, then they're balanced enough. And it's like all of them have these capabilities of coming up with these ridiculous combos, you know, really good plays and everything. It's just fun to play. But because it is not focusing on the esports aspect, it's not focusing super hard on that competitive aspect, that's why I think they can get away with giving you bot matches in quick play. And it's like people are so serious about the competitive aspects of these games that it's like, if anything detracts from that, even if it works and even if it's ultimately makes the community more fun, makes the game more fun, they just get up in arms about it. It's like, oh, you're taking away my competitiveness about it. It's like,
yeah,
that's the point.
Like, ironically, if you're that competitive and you're that good, this isn't even going to happen to you.
Well, that too. Yeah, because you're probably not going to get consecutive
you're
losses.
Complaining about it, saying, "Oh, but it's just trying to make you people who are bad keep playing."
Yeah, because they want people to keep playing. That's exactly
the people
what
want to keep playing and enjoy it. Like,
yeah,
take your salty competitive ass and go like back to being good.
Yeah,
you know, instead of yelling at us to, you know, get good or get out of your game.
Yeah,
we'll see what NetEase says. They haven't admitted it yet.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope they do. I wish they would have been up front because, like, I think the people that are in that situation, I can't imagine any of us really minding. Like,
yeah, and like
I play that way.
I've definitely been in this situation. I can go back in my history and see, oh, this was a bot match, this was a bot match, this was a bot match. Granted, a vast majority of the games I play are not bot matches because it actually takes a little bit for me to get consecutive losses. You know, I have, you know, I think even if you take away the bot matches, I'm still over 500. So, I mean, I don't really like, honestly, right now, I'm actually having more fun playing against bots, playing practice versus AI, because I just like the game. It's not the competitive.
I was going to ask
aspects.
my son about it, but he plays with friends. So
yeah, I mean that's one aspect. Is like I just play randos, so I don't have that. But it's like it's just more fun for like even like going back to Heroes of the Storm. I almost never played quick play in Heroes of the Storm. I almost always played versus AI because I just wanted to play the game. I didn't want to have the stress of competitiveness. So that's just me. I know there's a lot of people like, I know it's I'm realizing again how much the ADHD is affecting my brain. Cause oftentimes I'm realizing that because of the like dopamine, insensitivity associated with ADHD, I don't get the neurotransmitter high from success, but I still get the lows from failure. So it's like, okay, if I get a really close competitive match and when we squeak it out at the very end, that doesn't do anything for me. So it's just, I feel all the stress and none of the high of success, which
I'm sorry, man.
I'm realizing this is not I'm realizing this now. Again, this is one of the reasons why I want to get diagnosed and get medication. So I can actually be excited about winning stuff. But yeah, that's why I actually kind of prefer playing against bots. Cause then it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about them bad mouthing me for whatever reason. First of all, because that tilts me like nothing else. Oh, I know people are just going to say, "Oh, just ignore it." It's like it's difficult to do that when you can't focus. But and it's like more often than not, it's like I'm more often than not we're going to win. First of all, and even when we don't, it's like it doesn't count towards anything. Like it doesn't even register it as a win or a loss on your statistics. So I mean, it's supposed to be practice, and it's
Yeah,
like
if this was messing with your stats,
yeah.
and this doesn't either, really, does it?
No, it does. It
Oh,
still
okay.
count. It still
A
counts
little
it.
bit, yeah.
Yeah, it still counts it as a quick play match, even if it's against bots. But again, the bots are kind of intentionally stupid. So more
Yeah.
often than not, you're going to win those matches, which is the intention.
But it's in quick play.
Yeah, which again is basically just kind of practice mode against people, is what it really
Yeah.
is. So, which is something that I need to get over as well, because even like in quick play, I get super competitive, and even though I shouldn't, but yeah, even like in practice versus AI, that allows me to play characters I don't usually play. Like I got MVP as Black Widow in practice versus AI, and I don't think I landed a headshot the whole match. But it's good practice too, because like the one thing that I need to focus on the most, I think, is just aim. My mouse aim is terrible. So just going in against AI and like figuring out, it's like, okay, this situation works best with this character and all that jazz. It's fun to me. I get to play characters I don't normally play. So I don't know, this whole situation with bots in general, because I know that there are other games that allegedly do this as well. Like Fortnite has been accused of doing this for people as well. Frankly, I don't care. Like it's in quick play, it's not competitive, and it's like it's still an added number to your total. It's like so. I don't know. That's just me. I know I'm. There's a lot of people that are just like
Oh,
up in
hey,
arms
hey.
about this, obviously, but
Hang on, I'll fuel it. Outrage! There we go.
yeah.
Oh wait, hang on. I got another one in me. I
Grr,
found something to
arg.
be mad about because my life is lifeless.
Yeah.
I shake my fist to the heavens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I just
professionally outraged.
yeah, professionally outraged. It's like, to me personally, this is just old man yells at clouds, but it's news. I can again, I can kind of see it the other way. It's like, oh, this isn't a true win, in the sense it's like I need to. The only way I can get a win is if it's against people, and it's like, who cares? I got other stuff to like. Again, is I'm having more fun playing against practice on AI than I am against actual people. So the game is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. But with
Some.
that, yeah. With that, we can go ahead and that'll be our show for tonight. Everyone, thank you for listening. Join us next week for our discussion. It's going to be our last episode this month. We're going to be finishing up Choices Matters with As Dusk Falls. We're going to be doing that with Jess from the Opinionated Luscious podcast. Going to have her back on here for that, because one of the first times that I watched one of her streams, she was playing this game, and we actually have an inside joke from this game, and we'll be able to talk about that with her next week. I'm actually looking forward to that. This might be another game that it's on Game Pass, which is nice. So I'll actually I might try to get a playthrough of this as well. I think it's sub 10 hours for one run through, which isn't too bad. So I might be able to get a full playthrough of this before we get to the next episode, and be able to see like how variable the actual choices are. I'm anticipating.
I can actually play.
Yeah. I'm anticipating that it's going to be somewhere in between Until Dawn and Detroit Become Human. I don't know which way it's going to lean, but I don't know. It's difficult to compete with Detroit Become Human when it comes to choices. But we're going to be talking about that next week with Jess. Everyone, thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard and you'd like to help us out, a few ways you can do that are by giving us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and YouTube channels for our live recordings Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to burp. Excuse me. It's when we start our tech check and our pre-show. You can watch us or listen to us rant on about how alphas was criminally ended.
How cold it is
And it
out.
was.
Yeah, that too. Practically starting a new podcast in our pre-show. But anyways, or you can become one of our patrons. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel. You can find this show and the links to everything around it, everything I just mentioned, using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. It'll take you to my website, caffeineinducedproductions.com. You can probably see why I put a bit.ly link there, because caffeine is very difficult to spell. I still spell it wrong, even now. Amber, where can people find you around the internet?
Oh, go to 9of12.com. That's NINEOF12.com. It'll point you to my projects.
Theo, where can people find you?
Usually in trouble. And I have to say real quick, I think the little side podcast is a good idea where we just talk guff about stuff. We'll call it Part-Time Shamers. I'd write that check. Light it up.
I have a feeling you've been thinking about that one for the whole show, haven't you?
I've had that holstered. Yeah, I've had that tucked away. You know, I've been standing back at the glow and joy of you two talking about the game. So like I had to shoot my shot when it counted. So I was just, I was in sniper mode. I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait this out. They can find me at Rabbit and Red Radio, and I'm also back on swell.com at It's That One Weirdo.
All right. Everyone, thank you for watching, and until next time, and As Dusk Falls with Jess, we are the Part-Time Gamers, clocking out.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.